Hello, and welcome to Sunspiration. It's another Sunday, and I'm so super excited. If you're watching for the first time, Sunspiration is inspiration from the Holy Bible. I am a speaker and a Christian, so every Sunday I go into the Holy Bible and I find a powerful passage to fire you up for the week. I want to start by saying thank you so much to all those who watched my video from last week. And I got some really good feedback. And I think that feedback is what gives me the fire to actually carry on going. At least I know that lives are being blessed. I know lives are being blessed. But when I see it physically and I see the testimonies of these videos, I think it gives me another fresh fire to keep going. In this month of June, we are looking at a powerful topic which I called Do Not Forget. And last week, we looked at God as our provider. And I think it was a blessing, even sharing it with you. And even I felt so much, it was a lesson to myself. As I say to you, most of these videos, I make them and I share them with you guys. It's not about telling you guys things too. But when I'm actually sharing them is a way of inspiring myself. So we are all learning and we are all growing in God's word together. Today, I want to look at a very powerful topic as we look at our theme of Do Not Forget. I want to look at God the Healer. And it's a very powerful story of a prophet, Elisha, which you can find in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 8 to 36. Or maybe you can actually call the topic the Shunamite woman. I will just share with you briefly what's in that passage because it's quite a long one. So I encourage you to read it if you get a chance. If you don't have a Bible, you can get one on the internet, or you can just get a paper Bible too, and you can just have a good read of it. Maybe you've read it before. I would encourage you maybe just read it again so I can relate it to the message I am trying to share today. 2 Kings is a book, chapter 4, and it's verses 8 to 36. In summary, Elijah came into the city and the woman saw him a few times. She felt, let's make a place for this prophet. So anytime he comes around, he can have somewhere to lay his head. And so the woman made a room for the prophet to be resting every time with his servant Gehazi. And then one day Elisha thought, this woman has been a blessing to me. What can we do for her? You know, when someone has helped you several times and you begin to think, what can I do for this person? And his servant said to her, let me call the lady. So his servant called the lady in, and Elisha asked the lady, what can we do for you? Tell us. Should we speak to the king for you? What can we do? The woman said, well, more or less she just said, we're pretty all right. We're good. And then Elisha asked his servant, what can we do? And the servant said, well, she hasn't got a son. Then Elisha said to her, this time next year, you will be carrying your son. Wow, the woman heard, no, Elisha, the woman said, no, don't even say that. Because possibly the woman had been disappointed several times. And even when Gehazi was telling Elisha about the woman not having a son, he actually said to Elisha, he said, you know what, the woman's husband too is quite old. And I think there's a lesson for us to pull from there, which I'll come back to later. Now, a year later, yes, as Elisha said, the woman had a son. And then one day, the son went out with his dad. Son complained of a headache. The dad told his son, oh, fine, told the servants, take the son back home to his mum. As they were taking him back home to his mum, he got back home and everything else. And then the son died. The woman took the son and laid him on the bed, on Elisha's bed, the one she had made for him. And while he was there, she went out to go and meet the prophet. And when he saw at a distance, he felt something is not right, but God hasn't told me what's gone wrong. When the woman got to him, she told him the son was dead. And Elisha said to his servant, take my staff, go ahead, go and lay it on him. And she said to him, no, I'm going nowhere. You have to come with me. And the woman went to Elisha, back to the boy, and the boy was brought back to life by Elisha. Now that is a quick summary of that passage, but if you want to get the full details of everything, I'll encourage you to read it. So now I'm going to focus on the lessons we can actually learn from this, looking at God being our healer. Now, lesson number 1 is the generosity of the woman. I think that is a powerful lesson we can take away first. She was very generous, and because of her generosity, the prophet rewarded her with a child. Now, there are times in which you go to places and you help people, and people will say, you're very helpful. You know, one thing about service is when you serve people, People will always be willing to bless you. People will be willing to do things for you. And Elisha said, what can we do for you? Now, sometimes God will promise you something. When God says to you, what can I do for you? And there are times in which you even approach people. It's happened to me before. I was talking to this guy on the phone who was like really high up. And he said to me, if I give you $1 million, what will you do with it? And I kept quiet and I started stammering. That was the day I learned my lesson. That every day you walk around in your heart, in your mind, ready. If possible, have the goals written on a piece of paper. Put it in your wallet. If someone says to you, what can I do for you? What do you need? If I give you this, what will you do with it? Always have your answers ready. And I don't know whether he was giving him and I don't know if he would have given him money or not. But one thing I know was I didn't have an answer then. And I look back every time I said to myself, Victor, what just happened there? Now, I want to encourage you, that's number one. The prophet asked the woman, what do you want? But the woman said, well, I don't really need anything. Even though she had no son, and she would have really loved to have a son. So I want to encourage you, the first thing is, always have what you need ready. And also, even still looking under this number one was the fact that there are times in which you know what you want, but you have that fear in you that, man, this is too big. I can't even ask for it. Nothing is too big for God. We are the only ones that limit ourselves. The servant was saying to Elisha, her husband is very old. Yes, he was saying that because he's trying to say the man may be too old to be able to get her pregnant. But even with all the constraints and the limitations there, the woman still got pregnant and she still had the child. Secondly, I'd like to say to you, God will never give you more than you can carry. And even in his word, he says that when he blesses you, he adds no sorrow. He's a God that blesses us and adds no sorrow to it. When we look at this story, we can see that after the woman had the child grew up and then the child died. Now you might begin to think, well, hang on here. God just blessed her and he added sorrow to it. And that's why today we're talking about God, our healer. If we go back to the story initially, we'll realize that when Elisha promised the woman a child, the woman was like, no, don't even say that, because she was scared of the disappointment. She was thinking, you know what? I've been come of age. I've been promised this several times. I've been down this road several times. It never happened. So you might be in a position where you're feeling, I can't even believe anymore now because I've believed several times and I've been let down. But I want to say to you today, keep believing, because as Elisha promised her, she got a child. But yes, the child died. But let's know, as I said earlier in the story, God brought the child back to life. There are times in our life in which when we throw a seed in the ground, we think the seed has died and they're going to come back to life. But guess what? The seed has to die in the ground, and that's when it sprouts out and comes out. Nothing is dead when it comes to God. Either God will bring the child back to life or God will give another child. But when God has given you a promise and put joy in your heart, and you might be looking at a situation whereby the thing went and you never got it back, there must be a reason. You must just focus on believing that it's not a punishment from God. As long as God gave you a good thing, it is not possible for sorrow to accompany it. So it's left to you to sit back and think, how did I lose that? Because it might be God gave you something and then you misused it. Or maybe God gave you a nice car and used it for the wrong things. God might think, if I allow my child to carry on down this route, just maybe, he might end up in the wrong place. So I'll just take this away from him slightly. When he's learned his lessons from it, then I'll hand it back to him again. Because God blesses us and adds absolutely no sorrow to it. The woman's son died. Yes, he did. But we can go to point number 3, where the woman went to meet the prophet and the prophet brought the child back to life. And I think that is a very, very interesting, and that's a very, very exciting part of the story. First, you have a dream in your heart, something you want to do. You managed to break through the limitations. You prayed to God and God has handed it over to you. You started working on it. You're building it. And then you face major challenges, like in the woman's case where the child actually even died. This is to encourage you. God is our healer. He can heal your situation. So whatever it is, just know that as you continue to believe in him, as you return to him and say, God, I know you gave me this. You bless and you do not add any sorrow to it. I know you gave me this admission into this school. I know that you will make a way for me to pay the school fees. I know you gave me this car. You will make a way for me to be able to maintain it and be able to fuel it. I know you gave me this house. You will make a way for me to be able to pay the mortgage or to be able to pay it off in full or to be able to look after it and maintain it. I know you gave me this plot of land. I know you make a way for me to be able to build on it. The same God that gave the woman the child at the beginning is the same God that brought the woman's child back to life. I want to encourage you, do not forget. The woman was disheartened. She was worried. I know it's normal for us as human beings, but let's always remind ourselves, God gave me this. God blessed me with it. He will give me the knowledge and understanding to look after it, and he will make a way for me, even when it feels like I'm losing hold and grip of this thing. He blesses and he adds no sorrow. Stay blessed, and I love you all.